All right, so hello everybody. This should hopefully be live and working. As you can see here, I have with me today the absolute legend, the Grand Wizard himself, Mr. K-Rino. For those of you who don't know me, my name is HSR, and on my end joining me is
your lady friend Bonnie.
Bonnie here will be watching the chat, so if you guys do have any questions for Mr. K-Rino here, feel free to throw them into the chat, and we'll watch it and go through it. But honestly, we reviewed his albums and then we reached out and he agreed to do this interview. And like that, to me, that's just, I just had to say before we go forward that I appreciate this so much because like nobody watches this stuff and really wants to get that. Young MC and KRino now are the only two people I think that have ever really, yes, it happened. Young MC checked us out on Facebook, but only two people I really think that have really been cool like that. But Mr. KRino took it to the next level and has joined us here today to just have a discussion. So welcome to our show and our podcast and everything. I hope everything's good with you tonight.
Oh, everything is great, and again, I appreciate you and appreciate y'all for having me because it's a huge honor again to be allowed to share your platform. And out of the millions and millions of rap records and other types of records that you could be taking time to review, you took time to do mine. So I thank you for that.
On the other hand, of all the millions and millions of rap records out there, I don't know anybody else who can drop 4 albums on the same day, but then go one step further with it and make sure that there's not 2 songs about the same thing. Now, that is something that, like, look, I can't say I'm an expert on hip-hop. I like to think I'm more of a student a bit, but I've reviewed maybe 350 rap albums at this point, and very few people can come close to having that level of diversity, especially on the same day. In fact, I don't know that I've heard another record so diverse as like this 4-piece collection in the entire time I've been doing this, and every name of every tier we've touched. So I think that compliment needs to be paid to you because to me it's like it sets a new level of like dopeness in terms of what a rapper should aspire to be personally. Yeah. But I do have a lot of questions because everyone knows you're like a dope songwriter, but from what I can tell watching some other interviews, you came up with battle rapping before you got into the songs. I might be wrong about that, but if I'm not, how did that go? And like, how did you end up transitioning from the battle rapping into the songs and getting into making records like this?
Yeah, I started out battle rapping because that was just the competitive atmosphere and the competitive nature that existed in my neighborhood in Houston and South Park. You had other great rappers like Klondike Cat and Gangsta Nip, and on the north side, you had Willie D and Romeo Poet and all these great battle rappers, Big Mello. So the atmosphere and the climate was just set up for that. It was real competitive, and guys wanted to prove that they were better than everybody else. So I kind of got thrusted into the battle rap scene by accident because a friend of mine that I went to school with, he had just battled this one guy and he lost. So he came into the gym and he was like, looking all sad, and I was like, "What's wrong, man?" He was like, "Man, I just lost the battle. This guy just embarrassed me in front of everybody like that." And at that time, I had like one rap. I had only written like my first rap, and it was a battle rap. And I said, "Okay, well, where is he?" And we went around the corner where he was, and out in the area, and I said my one rap, and I killed him. The crowd went crazy, and I thank God that it didn't go 2 rounds because I only had that one rap. But and from that point on, it was like the needle in the vein. I was addicted. And once the reputation gets out that you battle, then it's like being a gunslinger in Old West. Everyone wants to try to take your crown. So that's how I came up, and I'm grateful for it because it created an aggression in me as far as my lyrics that I still carry today, and that chip on my shoulder to try to be real aggravated and try to be the best I can be.
That's really interesting. So like what led then from the battle rapping to like focusing and being like, okay, let's make some albums? Like that had to have been like some moment.
Yeah, because what happened was the music scene in Houston started to grow. So as the scene started to grow, you started to see certain artists come out with records that were actually putting records out. And now here we are still out here rapping in the streets and rapping in the school. And we started thinking like, hey, well, maybe we need to try to explore putting records out as well. So in '86, I got with my dad, and he financed the project that I was doing with a group called Real Chill that I was in, and we put our first record out in 1987. So it was just a product of the climate in Houston. People starting to release records. The first Ghetto Boys came out, and we just wanted to get in the game because we thought we were good enough to do it on an industry level.
I feel that. So if I'm not mistaken, you have 38 albums out at this point. I just counted. I might be wrong. Like as the K-Rino. So this might be a tough question, but which one do you feel you performed best as an MC?
Albums?
Yeah. Like which album is your I'm the best MC on it?
Probably Annihilation of the Evil Machine. That was a double album I released in 2010.
Okay.
That to this day is the one I kind of carry as my favorite, only because I felt like I covered all the topics I could cover at that time. I was like, man, I was everywhere. I didn't feel like I missed anything. But since then, I dropped 7 in one day a couple of years back, and
Yeah.
I've some things that may have topped that if I ever sit down and listen. But I don't really listen to my own music, so I don't really know. So
Okay, so just on that note, then, what music do you listen to?
I listen to a lot of old school R&B, old school rap. I'm listening to Sam Cooke and Prince and Stevie Wonder, and lately I've been jamming a lot of Jimmy Spicer, Super Rhymes. Because I
Okay.
grew up listening to Super Rhymes, man, and I've been playing Super Rhymes every day for some reason. I don't know, but that's like one of my favorite rap, like 14 minutes long, that one song.
I think I know what that is, but I can tell you one thing. After this interview is done, I will absolutely be going to listen to it.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on that idea, though, you're definitely possibly one of the toppest MCs that ever walked the earth. So your opinion on this matters a lot. Who is the top 5 MCs, according to KRino, that every hip hop head needs to hear?
I mean, well, I can only give you my list. I can only give you what I'm into, and it's all opinion, because if you ask 100 people, you may get 100 variations of an answer. But for me, you got KRS-One, you got Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, you got Cool G Rap, you got Scarface. uh,
Okay.
just those are just 5 that I thought of off the dome, but it's real hard to just bracket it into just 5. But those are the 5 that jump out to me.
But even still, this, I mean, from the ones of you listed that I've heard, we have reviewed Scarface and whatnot. I'm actually reading The Gospel of Hip Hop by KRS-One right now. Like this seems to be the common factor. Seems to have like a wisdom level to the way that these guys rhyme. Even like every one of the names you listed, they seem to all kind of have a more educational role model tone to it. Is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, it helped to shape me, because those are a lot of the guys that I grew up listening to. So and can't forget about Tila Rock. So when you are growing up and becoming influenced by a lot of those dope artists, then you start to extract little pieces of them and incorporate it into your whole. So I've been able to do that over the past 30 something years, and those are probably the main MCs that have had the biggest influence on me.
That's really, really cool. So another question is just given your apparently endless stream of creativity, and like I just have to add like imaginative creativity, so like a level above regular creativity. Do you ever get like writer's block, or do you ever just record stuff, look at it, and be like, this is whack, I just don't like it? Or do you ever get into these slumps where you're not able to produce gold?
Nah, I don't believe in writer's block. I don't think it exists. I believe
That's a
in
good answer.
I think that people don't fill their minds up with enough information. And when you have exhausted the amount of information that's in your mind currently, then you reach what's termed as writer's block. So the more you pour into your brain, then you start to develop an endless supply of ideas and concepts. And the more you do that, I think you'll be all right. I don't go into slumps. I just go into hiatus. I may I may not write for 3 or 4 months after I finish a project, and I think in that time frame, my brain is just recharging itself from the previous project. But it's not because I couldn't do it. It's just the fact that I just kind of let myself rest for a little while.
That is a really inspirational answer, and I really appreciate that. Just before we go forward, I just wanted to thank my cousin again, just for helping us set that out. You know, he really wanted, if you could just shout him out, that would mean the world to him.
No doubt, man. Stephen Rio, what's up, man? We wish you was here hanging in there and checking us out, but I know you'll get a chance to see this, so we definitely want to shout you out and thank you, man, for making this connection and being what we call in the hood the plug.
That's
Straight up.
that's exactly what it is.
No.
Um, So I realized as I was copying and pasting my questions on my phone that maybe you and I don't write in the same way anymore. Personally, I've stopped using a pen and a pad entirely in my life. I do everything digital. Like, it's all just kind of on the phone there. But do you, when you write your rhymes, do you ever use phones or things like that? Or are you a traditionalist where it's got to be the paper?
I'm absolutely a traditionalist. I have to have the pen and the pad because I view it as a therapeutic process, and it's just the old school way to sit down and just go through the motions of writing it and stop and thinking of something else, writing it. It's a process for me that I think that really helps me. But I don't knock anybody that does it with the phone. I know technology is what it is, and whatever is convenient for you, because if you dope, you're gonna be dope whether you write it or whether you type it. If you whack, you're gonna be whack whether you write it or you type it. So do what you do.
I really appreciate that. So something I noticed, because I went back and I actually listened to your first album, I think, Stories from the Black Book. And there was one thing I believe I noticed. And when it comes to cuss words, I noticed that you don't seem to use the F word very much on your more recent projects. In fact, I don't know if I even heard it. I looked for it quickly and I didn't. But I do notice that once upon a time that word was definitely in your vernacular and your rhymes. So I wanted to know if there was a moment where you decided to stop using that word and maybe others, just to maybe clean up your rhymes, or if it's just happenstance, like it was an accident and you didn't end up using the word.
No, I went through phases when I first started rapping when I was real young. I didn't curse at all in my raps. I was like, no, I ain't use no cuss words. And then once I got grown, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start cussing now. So my first album, and then you're going through phases in life where that aggression comes out. So my first couple of albums, you would hear it, and then on other features, early '90s stuff, there's a lot of cussing going on, a whole lot, a lot of
Yeah,
songs I wish I wouldn't have wrote. But as you mature and you start to evolve in your ability to actually use language, you realize that you can relay and express those same thoughts without having to use profanity, and I just have a lot of, but I'll still slip one in there. Sometimes it ain't no way around it. You got to still just drop one on them every now and then. So even in 2019, you'll hear me blast a few out every now and then.
I appreciate that
But
honesty.
the biggest thing I'll say this, but the biggest thing I'll say this is that one of the things that influenced me kind of away from a lot of profanity is that over the years, as my music evolved, I would get people who would come to me and say, "Hey, man, I can play my music around around. I can play your music around my children. I can play your music around my mother. My grandmother likes your songs." So that made
That's a
me
really
more
cool.
conscious of being like, okay, well, let me scale back on some of the f bombs and things of that nature, because I want the children and people older than me to listen, because when I get the children, now I get a whole nother generation of fans that's going to be listening to me for the next 20 and 30 years.
That's really inspirational. Again, you are just constant wisdom. So the next question is based a little bit on a personal curiosity of mine. So from what I can tell, nearly every legend in hip hop, most classic albums of the 90s are somewhat impacted by the influence of the Nation of Islam. So my question is, when did you first hear the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and what would you recommend as starter literature for someone curious about learning more about the Nation of Islam?
Yeah, I first heard the name Elijah Muhammad probably in the late 80s when I heard Chuck D of Public Enemy mention his name in a song. It's
Okay.
from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Know Who You Are to Be Black. And that was the first time I heard that. Then later on, I heard the name Farrakhan for the first time in the same year, because he said, a follower of Farrakhan, don't tell me that you understand until you hit a man. And I never knew who these men were until a good friend of mine, a South Park Coalition member by the name of Dope E from the group The Terrorists, he invited me to come to the Nation of Islam Mosque in '92, and me and Gangsta Nip attended one of the meetings, and we've been riding ever since. So from '92 to the present, we've been actively following the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan and the teachings in the nation, and incorporating that into our music once we accepted that. But as far as books are concerned, the I would say the first book, the national book of the Nation of Islam would be Message to the Black Man, by the
Okay.
Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the full title is Message to the Black Man in America, but that wisdom is extended throughout the whole world. So it's for whoever wants to read it, black, white, or otherwise. But there are other books, How to Eat to Live, where he talks about the dietary laws that preserve your life and extend your life. And there are just so many books to go on.
That's really cool. I'm definitely gonna read those for sure. Um, so just to kind of ask a different one, in like the more social commentary or social, just this. Sorry, let me rephrase that. In these divisive times, how do you think we can bridge the different gaps of communication between different communities and whatnot?
Well, it starts with each community gaining a knowledge of the other one, and but before that, we have to gain knowledge of ourselves. As Black people, of course, everyone knows our history. We were brought to these shores here in North America as slaves from Africa, and our language, religion, culture, our God, and all of our norms and things of that nature were stripped from us. So we were basically hit in the head and had amnesia. We're given amnesia, and now we are in a state where we don't know our history. We don't speak our original language, so we're following behind those individuals who brought us into this condition. So the first thing we have to do is learn who we are, learn our actual history, not what they teach us in the schools. And then we learn the history of other cultures, other people. They learn our history and grow to appreciate it. Then we'll be able to come together and possibly bridge those gaps. But if there are people who have the mindset to be greedy, have the mindset to rule other people, and have the mindset to conquer and destroy, then that gap will never be bridged.
Thank you. That was a really, really great, honest answer. On a less, well, that kind of note, another thing that I was curious about had to do with the fact that we'll be reviewing Outcast's Atlians next week. So we were coming across, Andre 3000's famous quote from the South has something to say at the Source Awards and whatnot. And I was wondering if you feel that after all this time has passed, and considering how much actual lyricism is in the South, that people give the South the respect it deserves in terms of being a lyrical powerhouse. Because some of the best albums we've reviewed on this channel are Southern rappers in terms of lyrics and dopeness, not so much the Northern guys, to be honest with you.
Well, I think it has improved slightly, but the full respect that I think the South deserves is still not being given. And it may be for a number of reasons. It may be for the fact that by hip hop starting and originating in New York and on the East Coast, a lot of those guys still kind of hold on to that. We're not gonna give it up, and we're not gonna give anybody any credit. But there are a lot of great East Coast artists who fully acknowledge the dopeness of the South. And there are a lot, of course, around the world, the fans definitely do it. And that's really what matters in the end. So I think that stereotypes and bad reputations of the South have been put out there so long. Like with Houston, it's always been with y'all country, y'all ride horses, y'all rope cows and things of that nature. So they try to equate the ability to be lyrical with uh, not having intelligence. We don't have the intelligence. Intelligence is not relegated to a region. It's not relegated to a part of the world. If you have brains and intelligence, you can
One
spit.
quick second, I have to click a button.
Okay.
The joys of live.
Apparently, a little pop-up happened. Anyway, sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah, but basically, I think that we've just got a bad rap because people feel like if you're from the South or you're from the so-called the country, you're not smart, and that's just simply not true. And I did a song called "Knocking Our Hustle" a few years ago, where I kind of spoke on that and spoke also about the history of a lot of Black people in America, where a lot of us originated in the South and moved up north. So a lot of those who live on the East Coast, a lot of those who live in the Midwest, they have relatives and their families originated down south. So to try to knock the South and say, well, we ain't got no lyricism, we ain't got, you basically speaking against yourself and your own history like that. So we got to just get over that, man. If you dope, you dope. Rakim said a long time ago, it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at. And we still hold true to that.
That's cool. So with all the changes and evolution to hip hop that you've seen, I mean, I guess you're in your 4th decade of doing this. What do you think's gonna happen over the next 10 years? Where do you think hip hop's going with the current trends? Do you think that this mumble rap style of things is gonna fizzle out and lyricism will take over, or do you think it's gonna fall apart?
Well, when you ask that question, it's basically, I view it from 2 angles. If you say where's it gonna go in 10 years, you asking mainstream and you asking underground. So as far as the mainstream is concerned, as long as the mainstream is controlled by who is controlled by, and they dictate what kind of rap goes out, they don't have an issue with putting out rap music where people are calling women bitches and hoes, and we're talking about shooting and killing each other. It's no problem with that. But if rap music is coming out of the underground and speaking on a socially conscious level, they're not going to let that see the light of day. So as far as the underground is concerned, I think the underground is going to constantly evolve and grow and eventually catch up to the mainstream and overpower it at some point, because the mainstream is going to, at the rate it's going, it's going to just fizzle out because people are going to get tired of it, and there's no nutrients in it, there's no substance in it. And as long as these record labels are caught up in the cookie cutter mentality where we can just create an artist, keep printing those types of artists out, and it never feeds the people's minds and spirit, sooner or later that people gonna get tired of that and it's gonna play out.
I like your optimism. I like the fact that it seems like you have faith that inevitably people will just crave realness enough to ignore the trash that's being fed to them, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, and also too, the artists are becoming more educated as far as the business of music. So with that being said, a lot of the artists who maybe 20, 25 years ago would just be quick to sign our name on the dotted line just to try to get on, these young guys are coming up now, man, and their business minds are on another level. You got social media, they know how to market and manipulate social media to their own benefit. And you can't just come to them with some bootleg contract and get them to sign. Now, some still will, but the education about the business of music is starting to increase among even our young upcoming artists, and they're taking more control. We don't own hip hop. That's the biggest problem, is that we don't own it. So we got to take ownership of our own careers as individuals. And then if enough people start doing that, then the accumulation will lead to the artists on a whole having full ownership of this genre.
That's amazing. So being an underground artist, I assume that you're still actively performing.
No question. No question. I had a show last night.
Do you perform a lot?
I perform, I would say, in the middle. I don't
Okay.
perform a lot, but I'm not just dormant either. So I get my share though. I get my share.
That's fair. So I saw I believe I saw something about how like there's something to performing with a DJ versus just playing over MP3s and such, right? So I haven't actually seen your live performances before, so I don't know, but I assume do you perform with a DJ?
Yeah, sometimes my thing is not more so about whether you perform with a DJ or not. My biggest thing is whether or not you perform and rap over your vocals or not. And
Mm.
that's the biggest kind of pet peeve that I have when I go to shows and hear other rappers do shows. I don't like to go to a show and then hear a guy or a female spitting over their own bars or just playing the record and you spitting over it, because I think it takes away from the live performance element that people actually have come out to see. I want to hear if you rapping fast and getting down on that song. I want to hear if you're able to actually do that in person,
Mm.
because I'm Scal sitting right here to my left, and he knows that I'm the punch in king when it comes to the studio and dropping my bars. But if I get on that stage, I'm gonna spit it live. Whether it's raggedy, whether I'm spitting and struggling and I'm gonna still give it up, and people appreciate that, as opposed to me having that safety net of my lyrics sitting up under there and I can stop and let that play. I'm not into that. I'm not a big fan of that.
I completely agree with you. In our local scene, I genuinely hold the rapper to that standard. If you perform over your track, it's just hard to look at you the same, in my opinion, because the guys who don't really do have to know their songs and actually like have to take the time to learn them. So I very much appreciate that answer. But
Let
have
me
you ever?
say this too. Let me say this too. Rappers should be held to the same standard that we hold R&B singers to. We hold singers to the same. If a singer gets on stage and you go to a concert and they lip syncing,
Mm.
you'll be pissed off. You're gonna be like, man, this dude up here lip syncing. That's the record. So I look at it the same way with a rapper. I don't want to hear the actual record playing underneath you. I want to hear you spitting that thing like that.
That's cool. Do you ever perform with bands, or have you ever collaborated with bands over the time? And
Yeah, I
like,
should have. I should have. It's a few shows I've done with bands, and they've actually been some of my best shows, because that's another element that you can bring to hip hop. When you had a live band, you're able to be more creative on stage and able to improvise more, and it's just more fun, and it's better for the audience too. When a rapper, I like to see a rapper getting up there with a band.
that's really cool. So, in terms of performing environments and where technology's going, how do you feel about performing in a virtual reality environment to X number of people? Is that something that interests you as an MC?
I mean, I had never thought of it, but I would have to really kind of just check it out to see if it's something I would be open to do or see an example of it. But anything that is not against just who I am as a person, what I do, then I'm open to it. I'm open to it. So, virtual reality, whatever the case may be, a hologram, whatever, whatever it is, man, we can make it happen, man, if it makes sense.
That's very cool to hear. I like how open minded you are, especially just. I mean, I know some people in real life your age who I work with, etc., and just are nowhere near to the level of open mindedness that you seem to display to nearly every single situation. And I just want to say I appreciate that in you. And I think it's evident in all the music I've heard of you, even back in the 93 record. It was still evident kind of in that part of you. And I appreciate that. And I don't know. I just wanted to say that.
I
But
appreciate you.
so I heard you mention in some interview that when Houston popped for a bit in like the late 2000s, there was no real infrastructure put in place to keep the scene kind of running at a major level. And I was wondering what could have been done differently to kind of secure the scene, or what could another scene do to avoid that pitfall?
Well, I think during that time, a lot of guys were signing big record deals. A lot of guys were selling a lot of records because physical CDs were still selling in abundance. Guys could still actually go platinum. But one of the mistakes that were made was that a lot of the artists were trying to run record labels while they were still trying to be artists. And
Okay.
I understand the premise of it, because of course you want to grow. And when you do that, you're thinking about your career down the line. So you say, okay, well, I'm popping now. Let me start a record label and and do it like that. But it's kind of hard to still be the rapper and still want to be the main guy, and you're signing and bringing this roster of artists on that are looking to you to get them to where you are, and you're not able to give that attention. So I think that was one of the mistakes that a lot of the guys made, and mixed in with not having the knowledge of knowing how to do it, mixed in with not being in control of their art from the major record label that was putting them out. So there was a lot of mistakes made from a business standpoint. And by the time though the knowledge of how to actually handle those situations came about, unfortunately, the popularity of that artist had waned, and it was over for him. So we lost a big opportunity with all those great artists. And when that window closes in hip hop, historically, it's real hard for you to get it back open again. And a lot of guys I know are still trying to get that window back open, and they're just not able to do it.
That's fair. I appreciate again your honesty there. So do you ever like just what was the most like shocking like song or album that you like something outside of the realms of let's say R&B, just maybe metal, punk, something just like really out there that might surprise people that you enjoy?
That I listen to, shocking. I think hip hop would probably be the most shocking genre that I listen to, because there's nothing that's gonna be more edgy than that. We had a platform to really just say what we want to say, especially in the underground. We could look. I roll with Gangsta Nip. So you listen to Gangsta Nip's first album
We did.
one, it don't get more shocking than that. So after once I heard that, it's downhill from everybody else.
I think I meant it more just in terms of people would be like shocked to hear that you listen to this thing, like you just happen to like Britney Spears or something just completely random.
Okay, yeah. What I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you a good one. I'm gonna give you a real good one. I'm a real big fan of Queen and Freddie Mercury. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Did you like the movie?
And, oh yeah, no question, no question. You know, I'm a real big Queen fan, and because that guy, he was just a genius in the way that he constructed that whole thing and the way he put his songs together and the stage presence and all that. So I mean, people would probably not suspect that I would listen to Queen and Freddie Mercury, but I'm a real big fan of them.
So what's your favorite Queen song, just so everybody knows?
It's out of Bohemian Rhapsody and probably another one, Bites the Dust. That's probably, but Bohemian Rhapsody is probably my favorite one.
Fair enough. So
I don't know what the hell it means, but I like the song.
I'm with you on that. I saw that you have KRino Radio, and I was wondering how that came to be, how long you've been doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing radio about a year. January made a year, and the station that I do my show at is a station that I've visited and been interviewed on myself probably 100 times over the years, just on different shows. So it's a community radio station, and every now and then they change programs and different people come in and different shows are added. And a spot opened up last January, and a good friend of mine, Brother Brian Muhammad, he called me up because one of my mentors, Brother Abdul Halim Muhammad, has had a show on that station for years. And Brother Brian was like, man, they got a spot open, man. I think you'd be good to fill in that spot and get your own show, like an hour show. And I immediately said no. I was like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't tripping. And but then when I hung up with him, I called him right back because I thought about it. I was like, you know what? If this was any other station, I might have turned it down because I knew that they would try to put a harness on me. But I knew that KPFT was just the kind of station where I could actually get up there and use that platform and be unfiltered. And so I called him back and I agreed to do it. I've been doing it ever since. So January made a year, and we've been blessed to have some great guests and speak on good topics, controversial topics, and they don't give me no problems. So I do it until they kick me off.
I really appreciate that. So I did see you have interviewed some interesting people on there. Just as kind of a two-part question. So who's the most interesting person you've interviewed? And then the other part is just who's the most exciting person you've met? Like who's the person that made you feel the most starstruck in your life to meet?
Well, I answer the second question first. Is two people. When I was 18 years old, I met KRS-One. We found out what hotel they was gonna be at. They was coming to perform. KRS, Biz Markie, Ice-T, a lot of guys, and we found out what hotel they was gonna be at, and we sat in there for hours and watched different rappers come in the door, and we was like, okay, yeah, there's Kumo D, but then when KRS walked in the door, I was like, man, just couldn't talk, and I walked up on him like he had a pistol in his hand. I was scared to approach him. And then he was just the coolest guy in the world, gave us free tickets to the concert and just took all the pressure off, man. And it was a big influence on me because it made me say, if I ever get a fan base, that's the kind of guy I'm gonna be. I'm gonna always treat my fans with love and respect and make them happy for the experience when they meet me. But the second person, of course, would be when I met Mr. Farrakhan, and I couldn't even talk when I met him, and that was 2 years ago. I was a grown man, but I just shook his hand and just held his hand like I was just frozen. Like, and I think about that now, like, man, you big dummy, you just stand there holding the man's hand. He had to be thinking this dude is crazy. But those were probably the only moments that I was starstruck, and at this stage, that's probably nobody else. Anybody else that I would be starstruck to meet are dead now. So yeah, I met Rudy Ray Moore, Dolomite, a couple of times. So saw Prince in concert but never met him. Saw Michael Jackson when I was a little boy but never met him. Richard Pryor, all these my idols. So all the cats that I would be starstruck about are dead, maybe except for Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder, he might be the last one that could make me act like a little girl if I met
him. So I did watch your DJ Premier interview. And there was something that y'all agreed to do on there that I thought was particularly interesting. You were both like, yeah, I'll totally make an album with you.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that was actually a thing. Are you guys going to have the K-Rino DJ Premier album coming at some point in the future? Because personally, when I heard that, I just got excited. I was like, I want to hear that. It has to exist.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. A lot of the times that you have different situations why projects don't happen when you hear artists talk about them. Number one is they just talking. They just running their mouth. You run into people all the time. Yeah, we need to get together and do something. And they just talking, both sides. The other reason is because scheduling. And one guy's busy or both guys busy. And in this particular case, that's all it would be because, DJ Premier is a genuine dude, and he don't waste words, and he not gonna say nothing that he not gonna do, and I'm not gonna say nothing I'm gonna do. If I say, hey man, I think I want to do 4 albums, this is before it happens. It's like it's coming. If you know me, you know it's coming. So it's just a matter. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and we'll just wait patiently and hope that the fans wait patiently until the universe locks us up in time where we can actually get it done.
That's very cool. Speaking of like new albums in general, I know you just dropped 4, but according to everybody in my comment section, you're a non-stop machine that will just keep working regardless of everything. So is there anything else coming this year? Because it's very early on in the year. So is there anything else to look forward to?
I don't know. I mean, well, yeah, it is. It's a couple things that we got on the horizon. I want to shout out to my homie Scalo, man, because I just feel like I get a lot of credit, and I ain't saying it because I'm here because he's sitting next to him, but I get a lot of credit because, oh man, he dropping all these. But I always tell him, to me, that his part is the hardest part because he gotta chop all this stuff, put it all together, mix it and master it, and really work through that. And that's a task that's way more difficult, in my opinion, than what I have to do. So we're gonna have the people who are familiar with the R&B album that me and DLP did. We're coming with the R&B part 2, so that will be coming this year. And then I just know how I am. It's probably something else. It won't be a multiple, but it'll be something, you know.
Which is your favorite off the 4-piece? Like, if you had to pick one, which is your go-to?
Probably the first one, probably Lightning Language.
Cool.
It's not by much, because I feel like all 4 of those albums, the way they were constructed, they all on the string, because the storylines that are connected together that go throughout at least 3 of the albums. So if I had to pick one, it would be the first one, but it's not by much.
That's really cool. So recently, I don't know if you've heard it, but Method Man dropped an album, The Meth Lab Season 2, The Lithium, where basically he took on that modern sound, a lot of the newer sounding kind of beats, and he took on their flows, but he rapped exactly like Method Man would come on any other Method Man project. Are you open to doing the same kind of thing, where you bring that K-Rino, but you basically take these new styles and just destroy them? I don't know if you've done that. You might have, but are you open to doing something like that again?
Nah, that's not me. If I did it, I did it by accident. But I don't. It's something about me as a 48-year-old man who's been rapping 30 something years. I feel like it's a dangerous, slippery slope to try to bring myself to where the youth are and try to do what they do. I would prefer to bring myself to where they are and present what I do to them, and let them have a choice to say, hey man, I'm feeling that, or nah man, watch out, old man, going on somewhere. But but if you're an artist that's able to pull it off, then yeah, I don't knock it. When you met the man is a legitimate dope MC. So I haven't heard the project, but I know that somebody of that caliber, if he puts his mind to it, he could have a strategy, and formulate a way to do that, and it could go over. So if it's dope, then cool. But it ain't me though. It ain't me.
I can appreciate that. This next question is kind of based on a personal interest. So at a certain point in time, I realized that people aren't using condoms like they're supposed to. And we don't have an HIV epidemic or anything like that scaring us. And part of what triggered this question was the song Going to the Clinic from your first project, which is a fantastic cautionary tale. And I've noticed that like 99% of the time that the media approaches the subject of condom use, whether it's rap, movies, etc., outside of comedy, it's cautionary, it's scary. But you know what nobody does? Nobody makes it sexy. Like no rappers are like, yo, and then I ripped a rubber off and I put it on and, went in. Like you don't hear that. And I was wondering what your thoughts would be on this. If rappers were to make sexy ass rap songs, including rubbers, as like a prominent feature, do you think that this would help encourage people to use condoms?
Well, I'll say this. Going back to that song, that was a 22-year-old dude that was just crazy, man, just talking about all kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is that the official word would be, if you're gonna do it, be safe. But I have to go back to what Minister Farrakhan teaches and what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, that the best protection and the best birth control is self-control. So I don't condone doing it at all if you shouldn't be doing it. Now, is that to say that we don't do it? No, that's not what it's saying. But if I had to give that advice, it would just be like, okay, you know what? The best way to keep yourself out of a jam is to not even do it in the first place. You're 15, 16, 17 years old, whatever the case may be. You're 30, whatever the case may be.
30-year-olds are not behaving like they should be, just to be clear.
Exactly. It's no age demographic that has the market cornered on responsible action. I don't care if you're 50, but I couldn't condone it. I would have to say the best way is to just have the self-control to do it.
I appreciate that. Honestly, those were basically all of the questions I came up with at this moment. I don't know if the YouTube audience
We
has.
do have a couple of questions that have come in from YouTube. From James, let me just grab that question. So James has a question for you. He just wants to know, out of all of the rappers living or dead, who would you love to collaborate with if you could?
T. La Rock, KRS, Run and DMC, and yeah, that's just a few, but yeah, definitely T. La Rock though, definitely though.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had somebody wanting to know if you still had a beef with Eminem, if you still had your hate on for him.
No, I never had a. You can't. A beef has to be mutual. It has to be. I'm not gonna beef with somebody that may not know that I'm beefing with them. My song about Eminem was directly a defense. When the songs he came out having disrespect against black women came out, I didn't care how old he was at the time, or he was young. He was old enough to understand what he was doing. So that record I made was actually a defense, and it was not made to be a publicity stunt or a way to try to get his attention or a way for me to try to come up. It was just strictly made as, look, sir, you're not gonna come around into this genre and start disrespecting our sisters. And that was the only reason that I made that song. So
Okay.
I don't have any hatred towards him. He's a great artist, one of the dopest MCs, but watch your mouth.
Do you feel he has watched his mouth since then, or?
I wouldn't know. I don't really listen to him like that. Like I said, I respect his skills just as I respect any other great artist skills. But I guess I could say that I've seen growth in him from a social standpoint.
Yeah, that's true.
He's actually met with Minister Farrakhan before. So with that being said, it's always been this perception that I had a beef or a vendetta with him. I don't even know him. I don't know him personally like that, but I just know that I come from a school that if there's something on my mind to say in a record, I don't believe in subliminals. So if I have a problem with it, then I'm gonna address why I have a problem, who I have a problem with, and I'm gonna say that person's name, whether they take to it or not. But we don't play that. We don't play that around here. That's just a rap record, but we don't play that around here.
Good. Stephan is watching, and he wanted to say, let you know that he thinks that you're the greatest. So.
Steve, what's up, man? Thank you again, man. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that, man. Again, I've been blessed with so many. I really hate to use the word fans. I just say that word to kind of give people understanding of who I'm referring to, but there's so many supporters and so many people that look out for me, and the blessings come in different ways. So I view it as a blessing to be on your show, to be on your channel, and he was the plug to that. So again, man,
it is very true. But for real, it's a blessing on our end that you agreed to do it. Like, in my opinion, from my knowledge, you are the official most famous person I've ever talked to in my entire life.
We got to get you. You got to shoot higher than this, man.
I mean, but just from a respect point of view, I mean, for a long time, I guess I battled with Eminem as a fan, right? Just being a fan of Eminem, because his talent is there, but there was something kind of whack on the last album, Kamikaze, and then I didn't know what it was until I heard the 4-piece, and I realized it's song content. You guys are about the same age. You're maybe a year older than him or so. And I think, as I'm a 31-year-old, so I'm at that point where the young kid stuff is not as interesting to me. And I'm looking for, role models. My parents are not the best role models, no offense if they're watching, but, trying to figure out how to get to, that next place in life, coming across some of your songs on the 4-piece, or especially Mightier Than the Sword, because I've had a chance to sit on that. you're one of the only rappers where, like, I review a lot of albums. I can't say I listen to all these songs again after, but time after time, your songs would come on and they would just be saying stuff like Both of Y'all. I think the song Both of Y'all is one of the most inspirational songs to the last year of my life, just to have like that kind of perspective with it. And so I think that, I don't know, man, you're just one of the greatest that, especially when it comes to song content and being able to just say these adult things, these things that like nobody else is saying, really. I mean, I'm certain there are, but you're like a dad rapper almost. Like, I know you're the big bro K-Rino, but you're dropping that like dad wisdom for everybody. I don't know. I just wanted to say that to you.
Well, what it is that I've always been under the opinion that as you grow as a man or as a woman, your music should grow with you. So I can't be in my 30s and my 40s still talking about stuff that 17-year-olds would talk about, because now I look like a buffoon. Now I look like a fool. So you have to build your maturity level in your music and then as you go through things in life, if you're blessed enough to be able to transfer life situations into your music, then that audience grows up with you. And people who like yourself, who may be just becoming familiar with my music or just hearing about it, then they can kind of jump on and catch on and like, okay, I can relate to this guy. Because one of my goals is to make sure that any topic, anything that two friends can be having a conversation about, one of the friends who's familiar with me will be able to refer them to a song that relates to whatever they're talking about. Man, I'm going through this. Oh, KRino got a song about that.
I can assure you that long before I ever really listened to you, that my cousin Stephan has been doing that to me for years. I promise you, for years that has happened, and that your dream there has in fact manifested in many places, I bet. Something actually I forgot to ask is, like, I've heard 6 of your albums now, so there's still a whole bunch to go to. If you were to suggest what should be the next ones I go listen to, like, what would be?
Well, I would have to know what 6. Well, I know you listen
the
to
last 5, and then the first one ever.
Okay. Well, you got to listen to Annihilation of the Evil Machine. You got to listen to The Alien Baby, Solitary Confinement, Deprogrammed, The Maven. Just I forget a lot of my own albums, but that would be a good little run to just go into, because again, I try to make sure that I have a little something for everybody and talk about topics that you live through, that you could just walk into the pages of the songs just in your everyday life. So those that I named, just go back and check those out.
Absolutely will.
Yeah.
Something else was, what is your definition of success? And do you feel at this point in your life you've achieved it? Because I think it's kind of related to, I guess, what we just discussed.
Well, it's funny because about a week ago, I was at an award show for a legendary DJ here in the city of Houston named Captain Jack. And I was there as a guest of a friend of mine. I was performing a song with named Amy Miller. And a buddy of mine was interviewing me. And he mentioned that a long time ago, I told him what success was. And he said, "Do you remember what you told me?" I said, "No, I don't remember." And he said that success is being, he said that I said that success is being able to do what you love for a living, and that's all you do. Now, it may not mean that you have a bunch of money, but you are sustained by your gift. And I was like, yeah, that's right. He had to reteach me what I taught him, because I had forgot I said it, but that's the absolute definition. Sometimes we think about, well, I wanted to go to the NBA. I wanted to be an NBA player. I wanted to be like LeBron or Steph Curry or whoever, but you didn't make it to the NBA, but you played professional basketball. in another country. You made a living. You were able to buy a house. You were able to buy a car and take care of your family. You had a 10, 12-year career overseas. You were successful. And you did what you love to do. So it's the same thing in rap music. You may not be on the level of this rapper that's sold all these millions of records and made all this money, but if you love what you do, and if you are blessed enough that your gift sustains you, then you're successful, plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for that. Were there any other questions from YouTube?
Yeah, actually, on that note, Notorious White 56 asked, he wanted to know if you thought that you inspired Zero to rap.
Zero's
well,
good.
you know, that Zero that's my little brother there, you know, and he's always giving me credit for being one of the people who inspired and influenced him coming up as a rapper, because there was a time when he was on the way up that he was hanging around us while we were kind of up, and he kind of just laid in the background and studied and was in the same time building himself to be the great artist that he is right now. So yeah, definitely big ups to Zero, because he always shouts me out as one of his influences, but everything goes full circle because he influences me now.
That's
and
cool.
I'm a big fan of Zero, and just as an artist and as a person, because a lot of people don't know the kind of person that he is just outside of the music business. A perception is created about him that's not fair all the time, but I know how he is. I know how generous he is. I know how laid back and how crazy and funny he is. Just a cool dude. So
well, give him love from us.
I actually just it reminded me of another question I wanted to ask you. I heard in an interview when you were talking about how everyone's a role model. Like, everyone's a role model. And then sometimes you look at the content people are putting in. I think you were just describing some of the guys who are maybe more into certain painkillers and things, and how these guys weren't glorifying a lifestyle. They were, like, living a lifestyle and, like, putting it into rhymes. And there seemed to be, like, a difference between the glorification of a negative lifestyle and then almost being a journalist with it. So, given your experience with it, how do you spot the difference when you're hearing a rapper?
At this stage, it's easy to spot. You can just tell when a guy is putting up an act based on somebody who. I'll give you an example. I'll take an artist that's from Houston. A dude like J-Dog. When you listen to J-Dog rap, you be like, man, that dude is rapping his heart. He rapping what he lived. He rapping what he feel. You could just tell that it's authentic. But then you got other guys you can tell it's manufactured. You got other guys that you just listen and say, you know what, this is all a marketing ploy to try to just present that particular image. And then some of these people, if they fool you, if they do slip through the cracks on you, then you meet them, it's like, this dude here, man, you know. So it just depends, because that's a dangerous game to play as a rapper, to portray yourself to being something that you're not. You know, you portraying that you living a gangster life, you portraying that you slanging all this dope, you running bricks up the highway and all this stuff, but in reality you haven't done none of that. And it's a disrespect to the culture, but it's also a greater disrespect to the people who really live that lifestyle, and they really have taken those chances, those life and death chances, penitentiary chances, and then they see and hear you talking about it like you did it. You playing a dangerous game. Now, to the second part of your question, if you were speaking of it from a perspective of an observer, it's like, hey, I grew up in these neighborhoods, I saw it, but I ain't acting like I did it. So I'm breaking it down in a way to inform and to teach, but at the same token, I'm not glorifying it. I'm not acting like it's the thing to do. I'm not praising it. I'm saying, well, yeah, this is what goes on, and I'm making you understand why it goes on, and trying my best, because nobody got all the answers, but I'm trying my best to possibly offer a solution in the song, because you don't just leave people out on a ledge like that and don't bring them back with some
Right.
type of solution.
Thank you. That's a great one. Is there anything else from YouTube?
Yeah, actually, we've got a few questions coming in. Another one from James W.S. He wanted to know what would be the one song that you would suggest to the mainstream rap fans to listen to try to get them to be a fan of your music or a fan of hip hop in general.
That's hard to say because you would have to go in the categories. I would have to know what that fan likes. Now, if you're a fan of lyricism, then I could direct you to some lyrical songs that I do. If you're a fan of storytelling, it just would depend on what that fan. If he was in that situation with a friend that's really caught up in the mainstream, he would know his friend to say, you know what, I got a song for you. So that choice would have to be made by the person who's trying to pitch me to somebody else.
Mm. Well, you mentioned that you know a lot of like lyricists and things like that. And I make lyrical breakdowns on this channel actually, and I broke down your Valley of Decision. And so, is there a song that you would like to see me break down of yours or of anybody else's? That would be a good challenge.
Yeah, it would be a good challenge. I don't know. Try Annihilation of the Evil Machine, just the song,
Okay.
the title song on that album. Try that one. I'd be interested to see what you do with that.
All right, will do.
Thank you. That's really cool of you. I don't know if there's any more.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I'm kind of out of questions on my end too. I don't want to keep you and waste your time. So, yeah, I want to just thank you so much. This has definitely been one of the highlights of my life. I will be bragging about this moment for quite some time. I can assure you of that. Thank you for making this great music. And in a time where nobody really wants to step up and be that person, for doing it, even if it's not the most profitable thing to do, or even if there's maybe more quick money, different things you could have done. It's like you chose the integrity route in a time when the world needs people like that. So I just wanted to say thank you for that again.
Oh, no, again, thank y'all for having me. I appreciate that. I don't take nothing for granted. I appreciate anybody who offers me that platform to just speak on what we got going on. So anytime, we'll do it again soon. And
That'd be so cool.
Keep listening, and we appreciate the love, straight up.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
that note, I hope y'all have a great and productive night recording and doing all of that stuff, and we'll catch you another time. All right.
Peace and love, y'all.
Same.
Peace.